From the block to the boardroom, listening close. They're spilling all the secrets, the highs and the lows. HR blunders, they'll laugh, they'll inspire. Two sisters on fire, lifting the empire.
All right, welcome back to HR Blunders. How are you, Jess, the life engineer?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Well, I am excited about tonight's topics to jump into them. And also because we are officially in Q2. Quarter
Yes.
one went by so
Yes,
fast.
it did. A
It
blur.
did. It did. Maybe toward the end of the show, we'll have to kind of do a recap of Q1 and maybe just kind of help folks get focused on Q2.
Absolutely.
All right. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. So, what do we have on the docket tonight to talk about?
Yeah, we're talking about generational differences in the workplace and how that affects the culture and collaboration. So
Okay.
yeah. I know you were saying that, there seems to be quite a bit of training on this from a manager's perspective
Yeah.
on how to manage the different generations, but I wonder if there's enough training out there for actually how to work and collaborate um, with the different generations in the workplace. I noticed with me we have some coworkers that are like younger boomers and even older Gen Z or older Gen X that struggle with dealing with some of the youngest generations in our workplace at this time. So much so, some just decided to retire because they weren't able to maneuver like with jokes. Just what jokes are appropriate.
Okay.
Um, things they were able to joke about maybe 10, 15 years ago are considered totally inappropriate today, right? And
Yeah, for sure.
that that can be challenging to foster, build camaraderie and trust in the group, or team. So,
No, definitely. I think just the culture itself has changed. Like, I used to love this show back in the day. It's crazy that is back in the day now. But the show Made Men, I think it was.
made men.
And because I don't know, like I really am someone that loves the profession that I'm in,
Hmm.
human resources. And so, when I see shows about like work and things like that, they intrigue me. And so I remember Made Men was so interesting to me because it was about this advertising agency. And I think it was like back in the 60s. And
Mm.
again, the way that business was conducted was so different. Like there were so many things that would be against the law, like literally against the law today. Like each manager had a whole little bar in their office. And so just, kind of like how
Oh,
people
wow.
entertain at home when you go into their office, they offer you a drink. Hey, can I make you a scotch, whiskey, whiskey on the rocks, and and then you
Wow.
guys talk and have your meeting. Well, and it's funny because at a point in my career when I was working for Marathon Petroleum, and I learned that was how the culture was. It was, they were like, yeah, it totally was like the Made Men,
Oh,
situation,
wow.
like so lax and just really, and so, yes, folks that maybe were in the era previously, they do have to transition their thought process around how they engage and interact, culturally, because, with times changing, there's differences, even like, in today, like in more recent times, there have been, we get into the gender, right? Because there's all the I have to kind of like back myself up sometimes in conversations and not assume but there are the pronouns, right?
Oh,
So sometimes I will just, back up and just double check and make sure that I am on the same page with the individual with the pronouns that they want to be recognized as. Versus 10 years ago, 8 years ago, that was not a thing. Like that wasn't something that, you even had to think about.
right.
So, I can see where that could become frustrating, but also like it could create additional pressures for individuals that maybe have been in the workforce for a long time because they're feeling like, okay, aside from the technical, like, information that I have to stay on top of and make sure that I'm keeping abreast of and training for and, keeping on top of the latest technology. Now I have these other things that I have to like essentially train on and remember, or else I'm offending someone. So I could see
Yeah.
that.
And that's the thing. It's just it made them uncomfortable and they just weren't sure what to say, is what they kind of expressed. And then I had my HR blunder of the week. And so we're gonna
Okay.
see, yeah, what you think about this and if this is something. So got an email,
Okay.
and the email was from pretty sure a boomer,
Okay.
um, baby boomer generation. And in the email, he called me a gal.
Okay.
And so I thought, oh boy, I didn't take offense to it because I know that he didn't mean any harm by it. But I thought, man, if he doesn't, check this, somebody may really get upset. So I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, gal?
I was just thinking, like, shoot, I think last week I was called colored, but I didn't do that. But that clearly, I was going to ask as you were telling the story. One, how did you recognize that they were a boomer? Like, how did you recognize or know
Oh,
that they were?
I know him. I've worked with him for a little while.
Okay, you know the individual
Yeah.
because I've even learned too. And again, like I can see how people could get frustrated because, like, I learned last year, like, we date our. So now I'm conscious of it, right? Because I don't want to date myself, but there was some research that was shared with me that individuals have found that okay, you're able to tell like from an email if you haven't met the person, kind of the demographic they fall in from an age perspective, age
Yeah.
demographic, by how many spaces they put after the period. Which we were
Oh,
always told you have two spaces after the period.
yeah.
No, this new generation it's one.
Oh,
And so now I go and I like correct my, well, not correct necessarily, but I will do one space now emails. But that's their clue so that they know like who the demographic that they're
oh wow.
exchanging with for individuals for whom they haven't met. And so, yeah, definitely it sounds like with that use of language, gal, that probably is someone of an older generation. I know that it has been used in the past as kind of a I guess like a derogatory, term or
Right.
unfavorable, right? And so yeah, I could definitely see where you take offense to it. And like I think that the way to handle that is again, like you kind of knew this person, though, right?
Yeah, I don't know him well, but I know him, and I know it wasn't
Okay,
any
you
ill
knew him
intent.
enough to know that he was not trying to be offensive, correct?
Right.
Okay. So in that case, no, I think that, the thing to do is again, if you think you have the right rapport and relationship with him, to be able to give him a heads up and approach it from that standpoint. Hey, I'd like to enlighten you and just let you know that some people could take offense to this.
Okay. Yeah, I did the right thing. Ding, 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 ding. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I did. I just decided to have a chat with them and say, hey, I know you didn't mean any harm by this, but just be careful because somebody
Yeah.
else may take it as offensive.
Yeah. And then there's again, and then sometimes there's going to be things where people are doing things intentionally,
Yeah.
right? Trying to be a wise guy. And that happened to me one time. This probably was 9, maybe 10 years ago. And look, I was a younger tender then, you know, but I was
Of
hosting
course.
a training class. Look, I was hosting a training class, and I didn't know this gentleman, but I took it that he knew what he was doing. And so I was holding a
Okay.
training class at our training center. And so I was taking all of our employees through this class because we actually were rolling out a new performance management process that
Okay.
also included the rollout of a new HRIS system to manage the performance
Oh,
management
okay.
process. So I got tasked with taking all the employees through, at that facility through this training. And so they're assembling in their seats. And, as I'm walking up, making sure everyone has their materials because, there were handouts and things. This was an
Hmm.
extensive training. Um, I hear someone saying, hey, hey, and I don't answer to hey, right? I don't answer to that. And so then they call me someone's name who actually was an admin at the organization who
Mm.
also happened to be a Black. This would happen all the time. So I would often have to put people in their place because they knew damn well we were not the same person. But, that person, she was an admin, at the organization. So he calls me her name. And then he says, because I didn't answer, he says, like, oh, whatever it is. And so I walked over and I put my hand firmly on his shoulders and I said, it's Clonetta. And, you know, we came back to reality and got some sense about himself, right? So you have to choose, you have to pick and choose. But I think, in that instance, it was important and imperative because I had usually those classes we were trying to pound, because again, it was the whole organization. I almost said something that people would know exactly what company it was. But we were probably like 30 or 40 people at a time, or maybe 50, between 30 to 50 people, like in the conference room at a time, so I could get through, get everybody
Briefing them on. Yeah.
sessions, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, in that instance, it was important. I understood it was important for me to command control.
Right.
Okay, because again, this is at the beginning before we've even kicked off the class.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you have to know your position. You have to know and understand the circumstances surrounding it and the implications thereof. So, in that instance, again, there's always risk and rewards to everything, there's
Right.
consequences to everything. And I was willing to take the consequences
Hmm.
because it was so important for me to make sure that I commanded control of that class, especially
Right.
before we even set to kick it off. It was
Right.
like, I
We're
think it
getting
was a 4 hour
started.
training, or it might have even been like 6 or 8 hours. Because actually, I think, yeah, we broke for lunch. So I think it was like a 6 or 8 hour, because I would
Okay.
train them and we'd break, have lunch, and then everyone would resume. Because you can easily, again, like if you're in a position like that where you're the trainer, and with that many people, if one person starts, they're playing on their phone, like I'm just not going to participate, then it spreads like
Yeah.
wildfire, fire. Um, so you kind of, you need to know and understand, like, okay, if the person trying to be, a jack, what are they? Is it really innocent? So the case last week where I was called colored, and it wasn't directly like she said something like, because we colored girls got to stick together.
Oh.
She wasn't Black, and that was just, again, if you know anything about the history of America, like that, just it did, like, it took me aback because it was on the phone, and I think I looked at the phone like, wait a minute.
Did I hear this correctly?
Yeah, but I don't think I know that she wasn't trying to be malicious, but maybe misguided.
Hmm.
So perhaps down the road, because I have been developing a relationship with this person, I am gonna have to kind of pull her aside and let her know like you should not use that in that context. You shouldn't even be using that. Like it's just not. Again, it's 2025, and the connotations and sentiments attached with that language, with those words, because they were used to put black people in their place.
Right.
Just like gal,
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah, same thing. Yeah. Yeah.
with women, but also with black women in
Hmm.
particular, right? And boy.
Hmm.
So again, while they seem like innocent words and verbiage, they were used and weaponized against certain demographics and groups and classes of people. And in these cases, these terms that I've just mentioned, for the black, or if you want to call them African American community.
Right.
And so they have a deeper meaning and deeper wound behind them. So no, so I think definitely your approach of helping to try to educate him so that he did not, use that language with somebody that, again, would be extremely offended. And, it could have been career ending for him, because sometimes things can get out of hand because somebody can go and take that email to HR, and then you don't know what other maybe dated terms or things that he's been using. And now, because now then I'm able to show a pattern, right, or a history,
Yeah.
maybe paint a picture. Um, you know, so I think that you're kind of giving him a gift by helping to
Yeah.
educate him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it is sad because I mean, everybody wants to feel a part of the team, and you have to build trust in the team, that you can, kind of build on some type of level to get to know people. And I think
yeah,
when you can't, make a little joke or do anything without it being, just being so concerned, about HR
yeah,
trouble, that can be tough.
yeah, yeah. I heard the HR trouble. But I mean, but it's a real thing because here's the other thing too. Like with most of the anti-harassment policies and things that companies have. So like you and the two of you and that gentleman, that guy, you guys might have developed a relationship where you joke back and forth, right? And it's funny and everything like that. And there's no offense to it. But I could be sitting here
That's it.
working, ear hustling, and
That's
I
it.
get offense, and then you guys are still in trouble because,
Yep.
again, even though the two parties involved in the
Yep.
conversation or exchange were joking and not offended, you knew what it was, or maybe it was an inside joke, but like because I'm there and I'm privy to it and become offended, then there's still
Yep.
some issues.
Yeah, I've seen people fired over that, and that is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a lot to risk. I think again, you have to keep business business, You have to keep for real in the workplace. You have to keep it. And again, I think kind of create a light environment for the most part. Um, and even while I'm working and dealing with my clients, but at the same time, like there's like a line to it,
Right.
right? And then you also have to know, your people, like who you're dealing with and the surroundings, right? Like there's one
Yeah.
a client organization that I have where these people are so sensitive to everything. They are so, so sensitive to everything. So
Oh
you
wow.
really have to just watch, you know, what you do or how you maneuver. Like anything could be kind of misconstrued.
Dang.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah, that's
Really,
rough.
really sad. No, it is. Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting.
Dang.
But there's different individuals within that organization that I deal with and that I feel like I've developed a relationship with that maybe I can joke with,
Hmm.
and we can have an exchange. But yeah, but there's, different other ones that again, they just get so worried about every little thing. And sometimes that's just my nature with HR, right? Um, because people do sometimes get a little bit nervous and worried whenever HR gets involved in things.
That's true.
So they kind of inflate it. Like I may ask, for instance, hey, were you on site at such and such facility last week? And so, like, again, this is the kind of organization it is. You'll have some people that'll be like, um, I don't, why, like they get so nervous and you could just
Yeah.
be making small talk, you know, you're just trying to make small talk with them. And they, eyes bucking and everything, getting all flustered, it's like, it's not that deep. Like if you were, because I was going to ask you like, oh, did you see, XYZ, what happened, just making small talk,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, so it can be interesting. It really can be interesting.
Yeah,
And it
and
can
I
be
mean,
position too,
oh
you
what?
know. It can be position too. Like sometimes when you're the boss, people expect you to be so serious or they have fear if they've been like groomed or raised to have fear of the boss. Like you can try to joke with people and they like are like they can barely breathe and
Mm-hmm.
it's like you have to tell them like I'm joking, you know. Like I remember interning at a company and the HR manager, he was a little crazy though. The HR manager, um, I don't know, he really took to us, like, because we were younger, as myself and my friend, we got to intern together. I don't even know how that happened. Because the company actually at the time, they had put a moratorium on it. This describes that HR manager. The company itself, a major global organization, they put a moratorium on all internships, which meant that they decided for that year because of budget, they were not going to have internships across the company. He decided I'm having interns. So he reached out to my university and asked them to send resumes, and we didn't know anything about this. Um, and we interviewed and we got hired. And and there was a young lady that had just started a year or so before, and she was like, "How are y'all here?" She was like, "Y'all not supposed to be here." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she was like, "They put a stop to all internships this year." I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Yeah, he's just doing his own thing." And
Uh-uh.
so, um, but like he enjoyed having us around. He'd often have us in his office and he'd be joking with us. But my understanding is he ruled his team and everyone else with like an iron fist. So he'd be jovial when we'd be in his office and he'd call down to the office, with the folks that we were working with. And he was trying to joke with them. He had them on speaker because he was like, "Watch this." And he called down there and he was like, "Hey, I heard you're being mean to the interns." And I literally heard a grown man's voice start quivering,
Uh-uh.
explain, like, "No, no, I'm being nice to him. I'm being nice to him." And he was trying to just like joke, and that was sad to me. It was sad to me, but
Oh. Yeah, well, that's true. It does depend, and that can be cultural too on the manager, right? And just how people feel about authority in general.
mhm.
Um, and I can see that's an interesting dynamic too when someone becomes the manager who you may have worked with for years as a coworker, type person. So you have a different relationship with them,
Hmm.
than them being, the manager, So I've seen that as well, and I'm starting to have that a lot more uh, in my company, because we're getting up in age, and and years
Yeah.
of experience, right? So everyone now that's in leadership roles, I mean, started out with me as an early engineer, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so that can be different too. So
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, so I guess, what are some of the things, like, generation wise? I mean, we kind of talked about this, like with boomers, and even Gen Xers. We talked about, they're more about getting the work done, and kind of being left alone by management. Just kind of stay out of our way, let us work.
Hmm.
But like millennial, Gen X, I don't know what have you noticed with that?
Well, again, there are different traits. Like there's so many studies that have been done, white papers and articles that you can find out there that really evaluate the different generations in the workplace and how you should manage them. And that's the lens that a lot of the work was, done from, like through that lens, and to help, with that kind of pain point, right? One of the things that I remember, because I actually had to train on this, um, was with the millennials, especially, like they require more frequent touch points. They need a lot of affirmation. They need to know that they're doing a good job. And that can be done like short and frequently, like by way of text messaging, by by way of messenger. Like it doesn't need to be a whole award ceremony, a program, but they do want the feedback and they need it. In absence of it, they begin to create oftentimes these stories of doom and gloom in their head. And I would, the way that that would manifest for me, like several years ago, like I remember I'd be in my office and I kind of, at least I like to think I was the cool HR person. And, and so I would have these young engineers come into my office and like stressed out, like, oh my God, I think I'm doing horrible. And mind you, because I'm in conversations and meetings that they're not privy to, right? And I may have just come out of a meeting, maybe an hour or two prior, where we're like discussing our next up, strategy, and how we're going to align folks and train different individuals to align them for, to be able to be promoted in the next year or so. And that same individual's name came up as somebody that, hey, you know, he's sharp. We're actually going to invest in him because we think he can be a leader. But then he's in my office almost crying, like, I think I'm doing horrible. I'm doing hard. And I would be baffled because I'm like, where is the disconnect? And then I think I stumbled upon this research and this data around like the need for the affirmations and the more frequent touch points. And so I was able to help train like the management's team on that, right? And then begin to help them, with working in some of those things and in conversations and their one-on-ones, so that people really knew where they were and where they were performing.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's really good. And then we kind of had a graphic too about Gen Z, right? That kind of talked about
yeah,
some of the things. And I think with this one, these are exactly the points that those boomers discussed on why they chose to go ahead and retire and leave the workplace.
I can't
Because
believe they let these Gen Zs push them out of the workforce.
yeah,
Oh
because
my goodness.
well, some of them were in leadership positions and they were just like, oh my gosh, to they just, yeah, I guess it was just too different.
Yeah. But
Um,
definitely that sense of superiority, I
yeah.
see that often. And easily offended, I see
Hmm.
that too. Because I don't know, I've just recognized that, you know, because I feel like I am very, I'm like, again, when I'm in business and doing business, I'm more serious.
Uh-huh.
And, and I don't try to beat around the bush. I talk straight to people. And I have seen folks like shrink, kind of. Like if I'm giving them some feedback, like this wasn't good. Um, or this was not up to the client standards. And, and again, like I'm baffled at it because instead of being able to utilize it to improve, to get
Right.
better, it's out the easily offended, comes into play. And yeah, I don't understand that piece of it.
Yeah. It is tough um with the easily offended. I
And I
think,
guess it's in line with the do not respond well to feedback too, right?
yeah.
Because yeah, it's coupled with that. And so, what are you left to do? But I guess for me, I'm gonna give the feedback because at the end of the day, I think folks kind of discount the impact you can have on an individual by not giving them feedback that they need to have because they can just go through life. And again, like there's some behaviors they might have that are so unproductive or
Mm-hmm.
that tell people from them, and no one ever says anything. It's a whisper. Everyone knows, like, oh, I really don't want to work with you. You don't want John on your team.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no one ever told John, like, hey, you might want to like improve in this area. And so John may think that he is just
Doing a
knocking things
great
out of the
job.
park.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
then he looks up and it's like every time, like people scatter from him, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know about that one. The the sense of superiority um even goes into what assignments they're willing to take for
Mm,
certain jobs, or what they feel that they should be able to tell the companies on what they want to do, and etc. And man,
yeah.
I mean, sometimes I'm just amazed at it. When we were new, I mean, it's kind of back to what we talked about last time, about saying no to your career. I think this is a great example of it with that sense of superiority, because they're quick to tell you, what projects they're not willing to do,
Hmm.
and etc. And I'm like, man,
Yeah,
we never, huh?
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
We're
it's
like,
like
man, we never would do that,
yeah, it's
you
like this
know?
expectation that you're gonna tailor the job around them.
Yeah.
And so like in my world now, currently, like with my contractors, because again, this is global. It's not just I've seen it globally, not just US. Um, they might say like, "Oh, I don't really like creating like the artwork or the flyers and things," and those things are basically marketing, and that's what And sometimes I have to really break it down to them in like plain sight and layman's terms. The reason some of our clients are coming to us is because they need to increase their revenue, and they do that by generating more leads and getting clients. And so again, if you're not willing and able to do the thing that helps them generate the leads, which lead to clients, then I'm not going to be able to place you,
Right.
and then they get, I think, sad because they don't have many hours that they're working, which translates to dollars. But if you've laid out to me like you're not able or willing to do the
What I'm
exact
asking.
thing that again,
Yeah.
or yeah, what I'm asking or what most of our clients may want, like, what do you think is going to happen here? You know, like you're cutting yourself out of opportunity.
Yeah, and that's kind of like what we were talking about last time. I mean, yeah, and that's the thing. Like I just never even had a mindset like that, right? I mean, to I don't know. I don't know what causes that. I mean, I'm not sure where that's coming from, but I
Yeah.
see that one more so than any of the other behaviors. Um,
Mm. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think that I don't know. I think but I think it stems from the, how they were raised. It has to stem from that, like their childhood, how they were raised. I don't know if it's the, like you mentioned earlier, the trophy era or syndrome where everyone gets the prize, everyone gets
yeah, the
recognized.
participatory trophy.
Yeah, participatory trophy. I don't know if it's that or if it's that, again, like I see some parents that, of course, I think every parent should praise their kid, like if they're doing something good. But I think some parents praise them to build esteem,
Yeah.
even when it's nothing phenomenal, right? Because it can be the most basic stuff. And I think that translates into adulthood for some of these youngsters. And so then when they get on the job, they're doing like the basic bare minimum. And then they're disheartened because they do have like a boomer boss from the boomer generation who's looking at this, or Gen X who's looking at this like, you didn't do anything. Like, what are you want an award for this? Like, you didn't do anything. Like, you barely should get your pay. Look, I should be
Yeah.
talking your pay, if anything. And, and there's just a disconnect there. There's such a disconnect.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that's the thing with trying to tie in the different generations in the workplace. So, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
do. I definitely think there might need to be more training on it, because just from a team building perspective, because I
Yeah.
think that there's challenges with it, with just on a technical side, leading a team
Mm-hmm.
that's multi generational.
Yeah.
I know
No.
I've been the younger person, right? And I've been actually a lead engineer as a younger person leading boomers.
Mm-hmm.
So that had challenges within itself when you are the lead engineer and you're leading people that have
Mm-hmm.
children your age.
Yeah,
So
and then you get some of those old folks that, you know, they'll tell you, I got shoes. I used to hear that, because imagine you're 20 something
mhm.
going into a plant where you have the authority to affect someone's livelihood. You can put them off of work unpaid, you can fire them, if they violate company policies. And you get some of these folks that, like they were like the age of my grandfather.
Mhm.
And they'd be like, young lady, I have shoes, but most of the time they would, again, it wasn't, I don't think anyone ever said that to me maliciously, but, you hear things like, young lady, I have shoes older than you know, and things like that. And yeah, it just, the dynamic is different.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. I had challenges like that when in early on in my career. I mean, it was being young, being
Mm-hmm.
in a male dominated field and being black, right? And so going into those situations, I just had to have a certain understanding of things to be
Mm-hmm.
able to function and get, the right results.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the best thing is to be able to have a mentor and then to be open enough to find somebody for whom you have a safe, trusted space with and be open enough to receive the feedback, even when
Right.
it's not the glowing feedback, you know. So I think even for our younger generations, like it would behoove them to open themselves up to be able to receive some true feedback and data, some unadulterated. Because again, your parents, they love you, right? They don't want to hurt your feelings, so you might not be getting the real from them,
Right.
getting the watered down version.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
And so, um, because you might have somebody that's, they could be coming home crying, like, I don't know why nobody's hiring me, right? But then, you see how they're walking out the house. They're walking out the house wrinkled, just looking disheveled and put together. But again, if no one ever says anything, like, no, like you're going for a job interview, you actually need to put on a suit or some trousers, some dress pants, like, or dress like you go on a court, um, and come correct. But again, if you go through life and everybody's just, oh, attaboy, and not ever like helping you grow by
Yeah.
helping to out or identify blind spots that you might have, then you're going through life misguided,
Right.
you
Yeah,
know?
that's so true.
Yeah, yeah, and so like I think you need that. Like everybody needs that, even like as adults, especially as, like career people. Like I talk about, like having your board of directors, your personal board of directors in your life, like for your career and for your personal life, people that are going to be able to talk straight to you and tell you, what it is and what you maybe should look at changing and what have you. Um, and that's why, like, I was listening to this young man that he's in Miami. He says a lot of things that sting, at first. Why are you laughing? But
Some of the thing.
yeah, he's very successful, but like he was talking about how he really feels um like your physical health and bank account are tied together, right? The same
Mm,
thing, the same like mental capacity, endurance, um, commitment that it takes to grow your wealth is the same that it takes to like be physically fit, right? And
yeah.
focused in the gym and committed. And he was saying he feels like those things kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And so he was just saying, because I think he was kind of responding to like questions maybe that he gets in his DM and things like that, from like younger guys asking like, how can I get, like to where you are? How can I, and he
Yeah.
was just telling him like you gotta again, you gotta focus and really be that person. And maybe you can start like if you haven't grown the wealth yet on the physical.
Mhm.
But the reality is like even as a female, right? The like again, I'm just gonna talk straight. The more appealing that you look, the more you're going to be able to sell
Mhm.
clothes. The more people are going to want to gravitate to you, like, because the women are going to want to be you, and the men are going to want to be with you, right? And next to you, and so it does kind of go hand in hand,
Yeah, I
and
agree.
and sometimes it's not even subconscious either that you even really set out or focus like, oh my god, I got it, but also at the same time as you do begin to that's why like again you can look at different, because I'm gonna name some names now. You can look at different, like let's look at people in the media in the spotlight. Like somebody was actually it was Tariq Nasheed. He was tearing up Candace Owens the other day.
Uh-oh.
But what he was saying was the truth, right? Because when she first came out, he was like she was getting them little kitty perms and stuff, and
Not
looking
kitty
crazy.
purr.
But now, but this is Tariq Nasheed's words. But now, like he was like, so now you can tell in the last like 2 or 3 years, she done got a hold of a stylist or something, somebody that has been able to take her under their wing, and like they're putting her in nice clothes, her hair is put together now, and stuff like that. But again, like now she's operating at a different level, at a different scale. She has a higher heightened notoriety. Um, and again, those things are factors or symptoms of other things, because like even for folks in the corporate space, like there were I never could get into it because I felt like my swag was too, you know, far beyond that stuff. But like they started having these companies like Stitch Fix and stuff.
Okay.
So like some of my colleagues were getting these clothes, like they send you clothes every month.
Oh yeah, okay.
For like career busy women. I think they
Yeah.
even do it for men too. But then also you can do it with Nordstrom's, like does the same
Uh-huh.
thing. You get your sales associate, they get your sizes, and they'll send a box to your house every day, and you keep what you want, and then they bill it, and then you just return what you don't want. But and again, and that's because they understand, like typically those high functioning folks, like they don't have the time to go shopping,
Yeah.
right? It becomes like a little bit of a struggle. And so it's one less thing for you to have to think about.
Right.
The individual learns your style. And but it can be dangerous because um it can kind of get you pick up some bad habits, right? Because I'm telling you, it's something when you don't even have to think about it, because I've
Yeah.
gotten the text and I've had to calm myself down. You get a text, hey Clanetta, we just got the new patent leather Louboutins in your size. I set them aside for you.
All
No,
right.
why would you do that? I was not planning to buy those.
All
So,
right.
so like again, so like so you will have people helping you, right?
Yeah.
So that you look presentable, which is important because sometimes, again, you are in the spotlight a little bit more, right? And so you do want to, present well when you're
Right.
in those roles. But no, I think, to the young man's point, I think it does, again, it does tie into each other. And then some of it is psychology as well, right? Because I guess for me, the way that I think about it is it's something that, like you get up in the morning and work out, I've accomplished something. And then, especially if it's like a strain, right? I've already gotten past a hard point in the day. So then whatever may come for the rest of the day that might seem hard or a difficult situation, I've already conquered,
Yeah.
something this morning that was difficult, right? And so it builds those muscles, and it gives you a little bit more confidence to be able to just push through um, that other stress that you might be encountering, like as you move through your day.
Yeah. It's great lifestyle habits for you. I've tried to, kind of teach that to my son and incorporate that for him, so that he understands no matter how busy you get, don't neglect this part of life, because that's
Yeah.
really important. I think that
Yeah.
we weren't always taught that as kids, so we had to kind of learn later.
Mm,
So I kind of do this thing with him. Whatever I learn kind of later, I try to, make sure he learns earlier,
as
so.
it now. That's good.
Mhm.
No, I think that's awesome. But no, but I think about that stuff. And again, sometimes it's just, sometimes the stuff is hard to hear, but you need to hear it
Yeah.
because it enlightens you and it expands your mindset. And, it may even help you grow. Like I remember there was a time, there was a gentleman that he used to irk my nerves. Every time I would see him on social media or go live, I was like, oh, this guy, he is just full of himself. He is like, ugh. And like I realized like a year later, it was me because my consciousness hadn't risen to the level to be able to accept the information that he was given. Because
Mm.
he was a highly uber successful young man in the trading world. Still, that he actually still is. He's kind of in the reality, I don't know if many people have even realized. Here's a little game. Like those that really have it, like the people that really like have the wealth. If you look, they've started to fall back. Like some of us on social media, and again, it's for a couple different reasons. I may do like a show on the other channel and kind of get into that a little bit deeper. Um, but like he's not even out like on social media like that anymore, you
Mm.
know. And again, and it's like a trend, that I'm kind of noticing. Even myself, I pulled back. Um, and I will share for myself in full transparency. Like I'm not even on social media that much. Like I share some things, and we have a lot of stuff pre-scheduled because there's so much technology. But I'm just in a season where I'm protecting my energy, and I'm in a growing, transitioning, you know, trajectory, and to the point where I don't even know if I should share this. But I'm just gonna share. Well, definitely some of the platforms, like again, we keep interaction going, but you may not be necessarily interacting with me.
Right.
But I've been able to build a system and train, individuals that work with me that they understand our branding. They're getting to know me. Where sometimes like I'll read comments. Like I might open one of the apps and I'll see a comment. I'm like, I don't remember commenting on because actually you'll find this funny. So there was somebody who, I don't know, just started acting weird with me, right? And actually blocked me on one of the platforms. And I'm like, what is up with this? Because like my last exchange with the individual by text, when I open it up, my last message to the girl was, "Oh, that's awesome." So I'm like, what the heck is going on?
What's happening?
And so I happened to open up another platform, and I had commented under this person's post. And I'm like, I don't think wait a minute. And I read it, and it was a really good comment. And I remembered, oh, this is Judith, who I have helping me with over at Nigeria, in Niger. Look. But she has gotten so good, you know, like I said, I had to do a double take. Like, did I write this? Wait a minute, you know. But
That's hilarious.
yeah, but no, but like I said, if you kind of peep, you have a lot of folks are actually starting to kind of step back from some of the social media and stuff like that. But anyway, let me get back to this guy. Um, but like I said, I realized like it was like a year or so later, um, where I would like, I'd see him come like, oh, I can't listen to him. I can't, because of the messaging that he was giving and trying to put out. It was so direct and so straight, and it was such that it would shift your consciousness
Mm.
because it would force you to have to level up and really ask yourself, am I really doing all that I can do? Am I really pushing myself, right?
Right.
Like you say you have these goals and that want to achieve these things, but do you really? Like, how committed
Exactly.
are you to it? And so, yeah, like I said, it was like a year later, I realized that my consciousness had to rise, and it did. And I got some very good, like learnings, from following this young man and such. But, again, I think we all need people in our life, whether they're, folks that we're interacting with, on a daily basis, or whether they might be influences, on social media, or mentors from afar, or an author of a book that again, I go back to that book that you shared, the 177 mental toughness secrets of the world class. Again, like the things that folks that force you to look introspectively at yourself
Yep.
and challenge yourself, right? Like, I want these things. I say that I have these goals,
Right.
but am I truly committed to them?
Right.
Am I doing the things that are in line with accomplishing these goals, or am
Right.
I doing things that are opposite of that?
Right. Do I have the work ethic? Right? Do I have the um do I have the schedule of someone who wants
Well,
who
that,
wants those
yeah,
goals, right? Am
and
I
I've
getting up at the right time, staying up as late as I need to, etc.
yeah, and I've been recent full transparency. I've recently been having to evaluate that myself. I really have. I don't think I can go as hard as these guys. That, like, I'm not trying to be waking up at no 3:30 in the morning to go work out. But at the same time, look, my bank account don't look like theirs either. So like, I don't know. Like, maybe that's something I might want to reevaluate and think.
I get up at 4 every day. So
Okay,
that's
all right.
how that's what I have to do to make it all work. To
Oh
get to the
wow.
gym and to be able to work the hours I need to work and to have time, you know, for business, etc. Mike. So yeah, I think
Oh
it.
wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a
No,
lot.
it is. It is. It really is. And so, yeah, so I think you have to be open and honest with yourself about, what you want, how
Yep.
bad you want it, and what are you willing to sacrifice for it,
Yep.
you know? And I don't know. I feel like there's a small percentage of like the Gen Z that has that. Although I think my vantage point is skewed because of the arenas I put myself in. I think I'm exposed to more of them that are operating at that level. So it can sometimes feel like, oh, wow, these young kids. But then when I step back and I look at the greater, you know, community, I realize that no, those kids are an anomaly.
Hmm.
But it's just because I'm so heavily entrenched and concentrated with them that I'm getting hit with it like on a weekly
Right.
day basis, right? Um, but yeah, but I think it does worry me a little bit because I do feel that um, not enough of the Gen Z, especially, have the least bit of interest in trying to even be as disciplined or somewhat disciplined to be able to make these improvements and things. And so it makes me curious and wonder, one, if I think from the HR lens, what is that going to do for our workforce of the future? So everyone's, up in arms and so nervous and worried about Social Security. And again, like, if the younger generations are not able to sustain and working to put into the Social Security, we probably won't have any for us, right? Because that's the way it's set up. Love it or hate it, the only way to really describe it mirrors like a pyramid scheme, right?
Ponzi scheme.
Because
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
we need the younger workforce to be able to come behind like us and work, and like we are now and have been for our generations that were before us, because we're basically funding you
Yeah.
know
Boomers and yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, right. And so it makes me wonder who's going to be funding it for us. Because, like you said, like some of them are like, I'm not going to work at McDonald's, or I'm not going to work at the,
Right.
pizza place. And, so then who's going to keep those businesses going, you know? Or even
Something to
like,
think about.
when you think down south or like Texas, like the farms, like, they don't want to go and pick the apples and stuff. Oh, it's hot. like the one farmer who was losing, he was like these young kids, he was like by noon they leaving going home because they, they're saying because by then the sun starts intensifying, and so when they first started to really intensify, picking up the migrants or the illegal migrants or what have you, you would see clips of farmers and things that were saying that they were impacted because they were trying to replace them by US folks, typically younger people who were like, I'm not doing it. After about 3 hours, they were like, I'm not doing this, and leave, like just leaving, walking off the job. Right. And so, in absence of, again, like a workforce, then what are you left with?
Right.
You know, how can you manage? So,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. All right. So, I think we're getting close to the end here.
Yeah.
Um, I think I'm happy we crossed over. We're in Q2. So I'm
Yes.
definitely looking forward to what quarter 2 has for us because quarter 1 has worn me out, honey.
Yeah. It was
Like
a hit or quitter. I tell you.
oh my God. Yeah, we're just getting started. But
Yep.
2025 is going to be something else.
Yep.
It really is. And I just feel like either you're going to move with the tides or you're going to get swept up in the waves.
Yeah.
And you decide where you land.
Absolutely. We're, with us, we're working, of course, our 12-week year method. So we've crossed over. I've been doing this since 22. I'm on year 14. This
All
year
right.
is 13, 14, 15, 16. Um so we're going into
Okay.
year 14 for me, and love this system. Is truly amazing. I would not be able to get near as much done without the 12-week year method. So
Yeah.
um
No, for
so,
sure. I've
yeah.
started to attempt to adopt it, but I don't know how well I'm doing that. But I'm
it
trying.
takes time.
But I do. I recognize again, like my every week is like a month,
It
you know,
is.
world, and every day is like a week. Like
Mhm.
I couldn't figure out what day of the week it was today. Like, and it's only Tuesday because literally, like yesterday, and that's what's scary because I was saying um, well, it is. It's like every day now is starting to feel like a week because there were so many different things. Like, I think I'm starting to vlog now. So we're gonna see how committed I can stay. And again, like it's taken me again, I'm just committed to my due diligence. Like I got my little upgrade camera last year, right? And I
Right.
use it like sometimes when I'm on my trips. It's fire. And that way I'm not having to burn up all my little, cell phone battery and stuff. But because I think people do need to see a little bit of a day in the life.
Yeah.
Again, keep in mind, like especially those of us that share our life, look, especially for the haters, you only getting a little glimpse. You only get, so you getting worried about the little smidget
Uh-uh.
showing, you only getting really a little glimpse. But I think it's important for people to see and understand because I don't think they understand like what goes into it. Like I
Right.
think folks would think I'm literally probably crazy because I've literally some days that jump out of like a meeting, and then jump into a podcast,
Yep.
and then jump into, maybe I'm doing like an employee investigation for one of my clients, putting together a severance, package or what like. But again, it takes that mental agility to be able to bounce and jump, or again, like, as an entrepreneur, then you have to run your business too. So you have to take care of the business things and make sure that your business is healthy, right? While you're helping other people with their businesses, you also need to, do some stuff in house too for yours.
Right.
And for me right now, the only way that I've been able to get it done is again, I have to have that versatility. So, like that rigid mindset you were talking about earlier, that does not work here,
Mm-mm.
right? Because there's no way that I'm able to structure and be like, okay, this day I'm only doing podcast, and this day I'm only doing, like, that sounds nice, but that's just not reality.
It's
It,
not.
it really, it just does not. And and that's why I think it's so important to have exposure to people, like-minded people, because you can kind of wonder, like, am I just off track? But when you get around like-minded people and people that are, operating at the same skill, scale or level as you, or even beyond, sometimes you can see the confirmation that no, you're actually right on track. And that's just the reality of how it is.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the reality of it. And yeah, so I'm starting to, you know, do some blogging. I got to get better with getting my content, once I have all the videos packaged together to be able to release. Because I have something I've been meaning to get out since like November.
Uh-oh.
But I just have not, yeah, I just haven't been able to, you know, like get it, piece it together.
Yeah, it
Like I have,
happens.
yeah, I have so, and it's not something that's like a revenue generating thing, right? But it's a nice to have, a
Yeah.
nice share or what have you. But no, I'm looking forward to, I think for second quarter, being able to have more. I feel like this quarter was about really getting the foundation, because we revamped all the businesses, and I had to do a lot of the work myself, even though I wasn't supposed to. I was paying somebody to do the work. That's a whole nother situation. But um but no, so I think first quarter was more of getting the foundation. And so second quarter I feel like we're going to be able to like really, expand and excel.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully more organization.
Yeah.
A little bit more organization for
That
sure.
always helps.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Do you have anything else coming up or
Well, right now we're trying to close out some of the classes that we have already going. So nothing new yet. We're trying to get those closed
okay.
out. Once we can get those done, then we can start new ones.
So when you say close out, what do you mean?
So some of the classes are coming to an end that have already started. So we're trying to get those finished,
Oh, okay.
those sessions finished. Yeah.
Okay.
And then once those sessions are done, then we'll plan new sessions to start again.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Very good. Very good. All
Yeah.
right. Well, awesome. Well, I'm glad we had another great episode of HR Blunders.
Yes.
And yeah, like I'm looking forward to continuing this and continuing
Me
the
too.
shows. Don't forget, guys, if you have things that you want us to tackle or to address, look at the just take a look at the thumbnail, and we have an email address there. I don't know
Yep.
it by heart, so that's why I'm directing you there. But you can actually email us at that HR Blunders email account and submit, like, if you have a question that you want us to actually address live on how you should best handle, a situation. Okay. And then at some point, once we have people that are engaging live versus watching the playback, I think it would be cool to be able to take their calls live and,
Yeah.
kind of be able to give some opinion on how they should handle some things.
Yep. Sounds great.
All right. Well, have a good week, guys.
All right, everybody. Enjoy. Have a great one.
All right, bye.
Bye.